world? Established Rich coming right back at you. Today I want to talk about one of the most misunderstood fallouts in hip-hop history. Not because it was loud, not because it was violent, but because of what it reveals about loyalty, gratitude, and vision. The 50 and Game situation is one of those stories that looks simple on the surface, but when you really sit with it, it says a lot about how people fumble opportunities they don't really understand. I was talking to my homeboy the other day, and I said something that hit me even before I said it. I said it's crazy how Game never realized how perfect the setup he had was. And that's where my story really begins. Because before G-Unit records, before radio records, before the West Coast comeback narrative, the Game was not in a strong position. Let's be honest about that part. The Game was talented, yes. Hungry, yes. But talent without momentum in this industry means nothing. At that time, in the early 2000s, the West Coast was not running hip-hop. The South was rising, New York was back, and the Game, despite his potential, was stuck in limbo. From everything that's been said over the years, he was dangerously close to getting dropped from Interscope. Dr. Dre didn't know what direction to take him. Interscope was not convinced, and the industry was moving fast. Enter 50 Cent. And this is where people have to be honest, even if they don't like 50. At that moment in time, 50 wasn't just a star. He was the star, the hottest rapper in the world, the face of the culture, the most powerful voice in hip-hop. Everything he touched moved. Everything he stood next to glowed. And when 50 decided to put his name, his brand, and his credibility behind the Game, that changed everything. Not Dr. Dre alone, not Interscope alone. It was 50 Cent's interest that made everybody else fall in line. That's the part people do not like to admit. 50 brought radio records, he brought hooks, 50 brought structure, he brought a clear plan. And most importantly, 50 brought vision, a real one. This wasn't just about making the Game a star. This was about expanding G-Unit as a movement. New York, West Coast, global. The Game was supposed to be the West Coast arm of that empire. And for the moment, it worked perfectly. The documentary dropped, smash hits, cultural impact. The Game's life changed overnight. And here's where the crack started showing. Because instead of seeing the bigger picture, the Game got stuck up in comparisons. Who rap better? Who got the better balls? Who gets more respect lyrically? And that's a trap a lot of talented artists fall into. Because rap skill is not the same as leadership. And balls are not the same thing as direction. 50 wasn't trying to out-rap everybody. He was trying to build something that outlasted rap. The Game never could fully understand it. Instead, he got caught up in blind loyalty to people who ain't even put him on. Fat Joe, Jadakiss, other industry veterans. Good advice don't equal real investment. Them guys didn't change his life. They didn't put their brand on the line for him. They didn't move label politics for him. 50 did that. And when 50 asked for one thing, alignment, the Game refused. Not because it was wrong, but because his ego couldn't accept that position. From 50's perspective, this was the ultimate betrayal. You don't stand next to me and then stand next to my enemies. You don't eat from my table and question my direction. And when the Game went on Hot 97 and refused to play his part, that was it.
Hey, now let's talk about the G-Unit for a minute, 50. Yeah. Now I read where you said Game was about to be dropped from Aftermath Interscope before you got involved. That's true?
Yes, it was absolutely the truth.
How did that transpire?
Creatively, the tires got stuck in the mud, and you know what I mean? So we actually got together. I recorded 6 records on Game's new album.
Right.
I did West Side Story, How We Do, Hate It or Love It, Church for Thugs, Special, and Higher. You see what I'm saying? And he came back recently from overseas and was disrespectful, man. Like the way he's like, it's like he's feeling himself, like because of how well his record is selling.
Mm-hmm.
So I openly, I wouldn't expose what I did for the project, but I wrote those records. I created the concept of those records, and he rapped around it. He's a great rapper. He's not a good songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
There's a difference.
It's a major difference. You
know?
Yeah. And he says a lot of people's names for shock value. He says things he doesn't mean. He says a lot of things and take it back. He says, he had issues with Joe Buttons. Then he runs into him in a club and they're taking pictures. He had issues with Memphis Bleak. Then he ran into Memphis Bleak in Miami. It was no problem. You know what I mean? See, he this is the truth. You know what I mean? The facts. This is the same facts that I talked about on Piggy Bank. See, I'm not a fake person. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. You see what I'm saying? And for me, he has a lot of inconsistencies. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's incredible that he would come back and forget how much I've done for him. Personally. You know what I'm saying?
So where does he stand as far as G-Unit is concerned right now?
Across the street or around the corner. He's not in my camp.
Not at all?
No way.
Okay.
Not after being that disrespectful. And at the same time, it's the same thing like, For me, I love Dr. Dre. The same way I love Eminem. You know what I mean? And Dre was a major part of that. And at the same time, I did get the tail was wagging the dog for a second. Dre had got creatively tied up onto the game project, and he stayed over there, so I had to kind of go off and make my record.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's why it's like 2 records from Dre on this album.
Yeah, it's only 2 records. Well, why did you and Game get into a shoving match?
We ain't never been in no shoving match.
No,
See,
that's not
what
true.
You say to sound good.
Okay.
That's what you say to look good. Me and 50, I push 50.
Never.
You see what I'm saying? That never happened. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's things that they say that inconsistent. Like, I really don't understand what made them do that. Like, really, what's on your mind?
50 didn't see it as freedom. He saw it as disloyalty. And once that line is crossed, everything escalates fast. Diss tracks, public shots, violence. And what started as a business disagreement turned into a cultural mess. And here's the sad part. It didn't even have to go that way. If the game had understood what he was actually standing on, this could have been one of the greatest partnerships in hip-hop history. He confused talent with vision. And in this game, vision always wins. Once the line was crossed, once the game went public with his defiance, you could not take it back. People love to say it was just rap. But nah, this was business, this was power, this was trust being broken in real time. When 50 cut the game loose from G-Unit, it wasn't emotional, it was surgical. From 50's point of view, the moment you show me you unstable in alliance, I can't build with you no more. And this is where the game made his biggest mistake. Instead of stepping back and recognizing how much he had been given, he doubled down. The diss track started coming. 300 bars and running wasn't just a song. It was a statement that said, I don't need you, but here's the problem. When you say you don't need somebody who put you in position, that's not strength. You showing you don't understand how you got there. 50 responded in the only way 50 does. Calculated, public, and humiliating. Piggy Bank wasn't about lyricism. It was about narrative control. And 50 won that part immediately. Because once the public sees you as ungrateful, everything you say after that sounds like excuses. Then it turned ugly.
The next time you heard of me and 50 anything was having a shootout at Hot 97 on the in the snow. I had on Converse running in the snow. What? I must have slipped 80 times trying to get to the Escalade. We was busting real bullets. One of my homies got hit. He's still alive, and in jail. But yeah, man, like we was shooting, they was shooting. Shit was crazy. Me and 50 stared each other's in the eyes with guns drawn. Guns drawn. 2 niggas that was friends and homies, and they came up in hip hop together. And I don't even know who fired first shot. I just know we were shooting at each other. And at that moment, everything was in slow motion. It wasn't about nobody else that was there, even though I had 30 niggas with me and 50 had 30 niggas with him, man. It's almost a blessing that only one person got hit. But I know one thing for sure is that if 50 is going to be a power in hip-hop at any moment from now, he got to be standing next to me.
Hot 97, gunfire, lockdowns. This was no longer hip-hop. This was real-life consequences. And here's where Dr. Dre comes back into the story. From over the years, from what we've heard, Dr. Dre was not happy about how this situation played out. Not because he picked sides, but because it was costing him money. Dr. Dre is not an emotional man. He's a businessman. And from what Stat Quo and others have said, Dr. Dre felt betrayed when the gang promised him he would stop and then turned around and made another diss track. That part matters. When you shake somebody's hand and give them your word, that's supposed to mean something, especially to somebody like Dr. Dre, who don't even speak unless he means it. The game dropping another diss track after that meeting was not just a shot at 50. It was a slap in the face to Dre. And once you lose the trust of someone like that, you don't get it back. This is why years later, when you hear the game talk, it's always a bitter edge.
I had some emotions, a little bit about like the Super Bowl shit and all of that. And then, that's like Dre's boy. And Dre don't rap, so it's like, if I want to, have a conversation with Dre or I'm mad at Dre, like, let me poke shots at Eminem, and then 50 can't out-rap me. So it's just like, he doing his TV thing, and, more power to him. The shows are great. But as far as like rap shit, like I got that locked. And so the only person that I could rap with or try to poke the bear and see if like he really want to, go there is him, because it's him.
He talks about control, respect, and being undervalued. But what he never really does is take responsibility. He never says, I let my ego override the vision. He never says 50 saw something bigger in me than I did at that time. That's why 50 never really responded after a certain point. When someone shows you they don't value what you brought into their life, the most powerful move is silence. 50 didn't need to win a rap battle. He had already won the war. Business, legacy, cultural impact. The game kept rapping. 50 kept expanding. And this is the part that hurts, because talent was never the issue. Appreciation was. Some people don't realize what they have until they don't have access to it anymore. And that's what this story really is. Not about beef, not about balls, but about knowing when somebody is pouring into you and not taking it for granted. And this is why I say the game and 50 Cent story is one of the most important lessons in hip-hop history. Not because of the diss tracks, not because of the chaos, not because of the violence, but because it shows you what happens when talent and vision are not aligned. 50 Cent was never just thinking about rap. He was thinking about structure, about leverage, about ownership, about how to turn a moment into a movement. The Game was thinking about balls, about respect from his peers, about being seen as the best rapper in the room. Both of those things matter, but they don't hold the same weight when you're trying to build something that lasts. And that's the part that gets lost when people look back on this. 50 didn't just help the game get on. He put his own moment on hold to bring him along. That's a different level of investment. When somebody opens a door for you at the peak of their power, you don't treat that like a temporary favor. You treat it like a foundation, the way 50 Cent treats Eminem and Dr. Dre. And I think that's why it bothers everybody to this day, because everybody saw what could have been. A united G Unit with 50 in the game would have been untouchable. Not just musically, culturally, business-wise, and historically. But ego is a quiet killer. It don't scream, it whispers. It tells you you don't need anybody. You the reason it's working. The big picture can wait. And by the time you realize what you lost, the window is already closed. This is why 50 never looked back. He learned who he could build with and who he couldn't. And the Game, he kept making great music. He kept talking about what happened and he kept revisiting the past. But he never really moved past it. And that's the sad part. Because sometimes the biggest flex is saying thank you. Sometimes the real power is in knowing that you've been given an opportunity that most people will never see. This story is not about size. It's about choice. Choice between pride and progression. Between immediate respect and long-term control. And if you watching this, if you building something, if somebody is putting you in position, don't let your ego trick you out your future. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe, establish rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.